Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Brendan Bravo. I work for the School of Medicine Dean's Office, and today I'll be going over best practices for managing non-exempt employees. So first up, I just want to go over the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA for short. So FLSA was created in 1938 to ensure that labor conditions maintain a minimum standard of living necessary for the health, efficiency, and well-being of workers. FLSA covers a range of standards for wages and working conditions that include minimum wage, overtime, migrant seasonal workers, and child labor protections. FLSA requires that employees that fall under the Act's protections, so these are non-exempt employees, be paid at least a minimum wage, receive overtime pay for all hours worked over 40 in a work week, and be paid for all hours worked. So this next one will go over FLSA non-exempt versus exempt employees. So if you're non-exempt, it means that the employee is covered and protected by FLSA. So it means they're entitled to minimum wage. They get paid for all hours worked, and this includes overtime pay or compensatory pay time. We are eligible for compensatory time because we're a public employer. If you're exempt, this means that the employee is not covered by the overtime and minimum wage requirements of the FLSA. It also means you're not entitled to overtime for time worked above standard schedule or additional shifts. So positions are designated as exempt or non-exempt based on job duties, salary basis, and also minimum salary threshold. So that means they must make more than $43,888 to be exempt as of July 1st, 2024. This next one is going to cover the Department of Labor overtime rule update. So the U.S. Department of Labor, the DOL, has issued new FLSA overtime exempt minimum salary thresholds. So our current threshold is $35,568. Starting July 1st of 2024, that threshold is increasing to $43,888. And then on January 1st of 2025, the threshold will then increase again to $58,656. And then starting July 1st of 2027, this threshold will be updated every 3 years based on wage data. So a quick thing about the minimum salary threshold is that it is not prorated for part-time employees. So an example is if you have a research services senior pro, would be making $60,000 at a 1.0 FTE, so they'd be above that new threshold of $43,888. But at 0.7, they're making $42,000. So since that 42 is below the new threshold, they would be below the threshold and would be overtime eligible. Please also note that employees earning less than that new threshold will need to be reclassified as non-exempt. So what happens July 1st? So the CU Anschutz campus has identified employees that will fall below the $43,888 threshold amount after the July 1st salary increases are implemented. These employees will transition to non-exempt statuses, meaning they are now overtime eligible. So for our DFAs and HRBPs, you'll be notified who the impacted employees are within your units. Supervisors need to ensure that all non-exempt employees are accurately and appropriately recording their hours worked. HRBPs and PPLs need to ensure that overtime is paid or that comp time is documented and tracked for employees to use at a future date. Please also note that comp time needs to be tracked manually, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later in this presentation. For employees, you will need to start recording their hours worked and submitting timesheets with this time each pay period. So just some timekeeping best practices. You will want to make sure that you are using accurate timekeeping systems or processes. MyLeave is currently the preferred system. Make sure you require employees to record all of their time worked. This includes when they start and stop work each day. Make sure you compensate employees for breaks and non-productive time. Ensure that employees and supervisors verify hours worked each month. Provide overtime or compensatory time for any hours worked over 40 in a work week. Comp time that is accrued over 240 hours must be paid out as overtime. And then make sure you inform employees that overtime should be pre-approved by a supervisor. Some don'ts for timekeeping: do not permit employees to work off the clock. Do not neglect record-keeping responsibilities. You must maintain accurate timesheet records for at least 3 years. Do not withhold overtime compensation for unapproved time. Disciplinary action can be taken, but we still must compensate them for the overtime that's worked. And then lastly, do not deduct time for lunches if the employee is conducting any work during those lunch breaks. Some examples are if they're at like a lunch and learn, or they're checking emails during that lunch period. These next couple slides are now going to cover the supervisor responsibilities. The first one is to make sure you know the exemption status of all of your team members. Make sure you're utilizing scheduling options that meet the business needs and still comply with the regulations. Some consistent work schedules help you manage the workload better and provide better work-life balance for your employees. Make sure employees are taking their breaks. Employees should receive uninterrupted breaks in meal periods when possible. Again, if they have to work through their lunch, they must be compensated for this time. If a non-exempt employee is working on a 980 work week schedule, there must be an approved alternative work arrangement agreement on file. And then employees must actually work more than 40 hours in a week to earn that overtime. So for example, if an employee takes 24 hours of vacation and works 20 hours that week, their total hours are going to add up to 44 hours, but they only worked 20, so there's actually not going to be any overtime paid for that week. Some more supervisor responsibilities. When it comes to overtime, again, ensure your employees know and comply with the overtime or comp time policies that have been put in place. Please make sure you inform your employees that they must receive approval to work overtime ahead of time. Ensure that employees are compensated for all hours worked, even if it is not pre-approved. If an employee works extra hours that are not pre-approved, again, disciplinary action can be taken, but we still have to pay the employee for that time that's been worked. There is no more off-the-clock work. Make sure you inform employees of expectations when they are not working. So they should not be checking emails or attending other work functions. If employees are expected to do or check emails or do any other job-related functions outside of their standard schedule, ensure that they are appropriately compensated for all such time. If you have part-time employees, they earn extra regular hours if they work more hours than their FTE-based standard weekly hours, but will not earn overtime until their hours worked exceed 40 in a work week. So an example for this is you have an employee that's at 0.6 FTE. So this means they work 24 hours a week, but let's say 1 week they work 30 hours. In my leave, this will code as 6 extra XRG hours, which stands for extra regular earnings, to the timesheet to be sent for additional pay. So that'll get paid out at their regular hourly rate. And then some last notes for timekeeping. Again, make sure you're reviewing timesheets regularly to ensure accurate timekeeping. Ensure that timesheets are formally submitted and approved by employees and supervisors each pay period. Be sure to document and track comp time accurately. And please encourage employees to use their comp time within the same month as it's earned. So now we're going to go over managing comp time and what comp time is. So comp time is the practice of providing time off in lieu of overtime pay. Public employers are allowed to utilize comp time under the FLSA, and it is sometimes economically an efficient way to manage extra hours worked for non-exempt employees. Comp time is earned at the same rate as overtime, so at time and a half of the overtime hours worked. So a quick example here is we have non-exempt Nate. He works 42 hours in a week. So with that, he has earned 3 hours of comp time. That's calculating by taking the 2 extra hours that he's worked over his 40 and multiplying that by 1.5, and that's how we get 3 hours. Comp time must be tracked manually. We do have a comp time calculator that was created. If you click this link, it'll take you to that calculator and it'll help assist with this process. And then ideally, again, comp time is used within the same month as it is earned. This is to effectively manage fiscal impacts. The best practice is to have comp time used as they earn it. And then another note, accrued comp time that goes above 240 hours must then be paid out as overtime. And then comp time balances must be paid out upon an employee separation or transfer to a different work unit. And then just some last things for preparing for the DOL FLSA changes. So again, make sure you know who your newly non-exempt employees are. Please discuss expectations around taking uninterrupted breaks. Make sure you also discuss expectations around checking emails and other unscheduled work tasks. Make sure you're communicating expectations about obtaining pre-approval to work overtime or extra hours. And also make sure you're communicating the departmental preference on paying overtime or using comp time. Please make sure you're preparing your non-exempt employees for recording all of their hours worked. It's no longer just exceptions as an exempt employer would report. Make sure you monitor timekeeping closely for non-exempt employees to ensure adherence to policies and accurate reporting of all hours worked. And then make sure you closely review and approve employees' timesheets each pay period. And then here is just some additional resources. The first one is the School of Medicine FLSA guide. This second bullet is a DOL fact sheet that kind of goes over the record keeping requirements. And these last four go over different MyLeave basics, some MyLeave for approving for supervisors and FAQ, and how to get the MyLeave timesheets entered into HCM. If you have any additional questions, please contact the School of Medicine HR team at som.hr@ucdenver.edu. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.